we had completed till I think line number just share the screen with you and we will see how far we completed, because here it's a text here, and we were doing this catalog of the fallen angels, and uh, 526, line number 526. So one by one, the fallen angels, we saw uh, some of them, we read about them and how they appeared before Satan, and uh, what kind of fallen angels they were, and where they were worshipped by which tribes. So all those things have been uh, told in detail in the previous lines. Now they come before Satan and they look at their leader, and they find that their chief was not in despair. So, though they had lost heaven, still uh, he was not in despair. And uh, as they saw this, they were somewhat inspired. And we will now read from here, from this description. So, Satan was not completely lost in spite of the defeat that he had suffered, and uh, which on his countenance cast like doubtful hue. So, he was, in fact, actually thinking how to throw a new challenge to God with the help of his followers. And we can uh, we can see here doubtful hue here means an expression of mingled gloom and relief. So he was in a kind of a mixed mood, we can say. On the one hand, he was, of course, depressed because of the defeat and the loss of heaven. But on the other hand, he was joyful, or he found hope in the fact that his followers were still behind him. They were going to support him. But he, his vaunted pride soon recollecting, with high words that bore semblance of worth, not substance, gently raised their fainting courage and dispelled their fears. So he soon spoke out, and he soon recovered his habitual pride. Vaunted pride means habitual pride, and he gently raised their failing courage and drove away their fears by speaking to them. And then straight commands that at the warlike sound of trumpets loud and clarions be upreared his mighty standard. Now, when Satan spoke to the fallen angels by using impressive expressions, then they uh, they of course appear to have uh, Those words appear to have a lot of weight, but though in fact they were hollow, semblance of worth, not substance. So they appeared to be very weighty words, but in fact they were not so. Uh, they were really hollow promises. Then straight commands that at the warlike sound of trumpets loud and clarions be upreared his mighty standard. So he promptly ordered the fallen angels that as soon as the trumpets and the clarions produced their warlike notes, then his huge flag should be upraised. That proud honor claimed Azazel as his right, a cherub tall. And the proud honor of raising the flag was claimed by a fallen angel called Azazel, who was a tall cherub, who forthwith from the glittering staff unfurled the imperial ensign, which full high advanced, shone like a meteor, streaming to the wind, with gems and golden lustre rich emblazed. So the flag, when it was raised to its full height, it shone like a comet and waved in the breeze. And Azazel unrolled the imperial flag from the glittering pole. So it was shining like a comet, a meteor, with gems and golden brightness. Seraphic arms and trophies, all the while sonorous metal blowing martial sounds. So all the arms means weapons and the trophies were on display. And it was the flag was richly decorated with gems and bright gold, and also with the heraldic devices which uh, were pertaining to the angels and the emblems of victory. And all this while, when the flag was being raised, the loud trumpets gave out warlike sounds, and at which the universal host upsent a shout that tore hell's concave, and beyond frighted the reign of chaos and old night. And when the fallen angels heard the trumpet, the whole army sent up a shout that rent the vaulted roof of hell. So the roof of hell resounded with the shout of the fallen angels, and it sent a wave of terror beyond hell to the kingdom of chaos and old night. So it transcended hell and went into the region of chaos and night, which was beyond hell. All in a moment, through the gloom were seen 10,000 banners rise into the air, with orient colors waving. And in an instant, there were 10,000 banners which were raised in the semi darkness of hell. And they were rising into the air and waving with glittering colors. With them rose a forest huge of spears, and thronging helms appeared, and serried shields in thick array of depth immeasurable. So here we are being kind of given a description of how the fallen angels were responding to the call of Satan. And we can see that a huge number of spears were also uplifted, and a multitude of helmets appeared, and shields were locked together, and in a thick array of immeasurable depth. So uh, you know, the innumerable fallen angels, they were fully armed now. Anon they move in perfect phalanx to the Dorian mood of flutes and soft recorders. So very soon, and on means very soon, the armed angels moved in perfect battle formation to the music of flutes and similar other soft instruments, which produced music of the Dorian kind. Now, Dorian music, uh, it was a kind of music which aroused feelings of courage and bravery. So, this kind of a music was being played, and they were moving in a very, uh, you can say, in a very systematic way. And they, a lot of flutes were playing, and other sounds were also there, sounds of other instruments, such as raised to height of noblest temper, heroes old arming to battle, and instead of rage, deliberate valor breathed, firm and unmoved, with dread of death to flight or foul retreat. So here, Milton is describing how the army of Satan is moving, and we see that the fallen angels were arming themselves to get ready for battle, and to the height of their bravery, and produced in them conscious feelings of heroism instead of feelings of fury. And this made them firm and determined not to flee from the battle or to make a cowardly retreat on account of a fear of death. However, uh, as we know, the angels, though they were fallen, of course, they could not be killed. So, dread of death, it's not really correct because they might be defeated, but they are made of immortal substance, air, that is, as we had seen earlier in the poem. So they would not be they could not be put to death, nor wanting power to mitigate and assuage with solemn touches troubled thoughts, and chase anguish and doubt and fear and sorrow and pain from mortal or immortal minds. So here it is said that this music was uh, not lacking in the power to alleviate and assuage with its solemn notes the thoughts of distress and to drive away pain and doubt and fear which the fallen angels were going through. So it had a very kind of a medicinal quality, you can say. Mitigating meaning to make lessen something. Thus, the breathing united force with fixed thought moved on in silence to soft pipes that churned their painful steps o'er the burnt soil. So, in this manner, the angels, the fallen angels, they were moving with silently, and they were showing a combination of united power and determined purpose, and they were moving silently to the sound of the soft pipes that led them as if by a charm, that led their painful steps over the burning soil of this field. And now, advanced in view, they stand, a horrid front of dreadful length and dazzling arms, in guise of warriors old, with ordered spear and shield. So, uh, finally, they, having advanced, when they were fully visible, they stood, presenting a line which was bristling, quivering with spears of frightening length, and they also had dazzling weapons. And they looked like old warriors with their spears held upright and with their shields of dreadful length and dazzling arms, in guise of warriors old with ordered spear and shield, awaiting what command their mighty chief had to impose. So they were all looking at Satan. They were waiting for the command which their powerful leader would impose on them, would what kind of command he would give. He, through the armed files, darts his experienced eye, and soon traverse the whole battalion views, their order due, their visages and stature as of gods, their number last he sums. So what did Satan do now when the fallen angels were in a kind of a order, they were standing before him? The commander, that is Satan, flung his experienced eyes through the armed ranks and quickly looked across the whole battalion. He saw their proper order and he saw their faces and stature, which were indicative of their identity as gods. And lastly, he calculated their number. Sums means calculated. And now his heart distends with pride, and hardening in his strength glories. And now his heart, when he saw so many fallen angels who were prepared to assist him in his fight with God, of course, his heart expanded with pride. And stiffening because of his sense of power, he experienced a feeling of high jubilation. For never since created man met such embodied force as named with these could merit more than that small infantry whirled on by cranes. So the poet says that never since the creation of man had there gathered such a force as had assembled then. And compared with these angels, no force could be said to have been greater worth. And than that small infantry, that is the army of pygmies, who were invaded every year by a multitude of cranes. So cranes are a type of bird, as you know. So here uh, we can see that small infantry actually refers to the pygmies of Greek legend. Uh, this was mentioned by Homer, and they were regularly attacked and defeated by flocks of migrating cranes. So this is the story that Milton here alludes to. Though all the giant brood of Phlegra with the heroic race were joined that fought at Thebes and Ilium, on each side mixed with auxiliary gods. So here, actually, Milton is trying to show us, his readers, the vastness or the sheer, numbers of this army, the hugeness. And that is why he is saying that all the giants who were reared at Phlegra and so all the giants reared at Phlegra, and this is a place. Phlegra is the old name of the peninsula of Pallene, Pallene, in Macedonia, where, according to certain ancient legends, the giants were born, and they were defeated by the gods. So, though all the giant brood of Phlegra with the heroic race were joined, that fought at Thebes and Ilium on each side mixed with auxiliary gods. So they were fighting with the gods there, and they were combined with the heroic men who fought at Thebes and Troy, and who were helped by gods supporting either side. So this is a reference to the Trojan War, as you can understand, because the gods helped, some of the gods sided with the Greeks and some of them with the Trojans. You know this from your reading of the Iliad. And on each side, mixed with auxiliary gods, and what resounds in fable or romance of Uther's son, begirt with British and Armoric knights. And here, actually, the number of fallen angels was so vast that it, it far exceeded all these armies. That's why Milton is bringing in all these comparisons. And now he says that uh, this force of angels surpassed all that is famous in fables or the romantic exploits of King Arthur. Uther's son means King Arthur of Britain, son of Uther Pendragon. And as you perhaps know, Milton, before he wrote Paradise Lost, actually he had in mind a number of themes on which to write this epic. And at one time, he had contemplated writing an epic poem dealing with the exploits of the legendary King Arthur and his knights, Knights of the Round Table. So there were many medieval legends about King Arthur and his knights. So Milton had at one point thought about writing his epic poem on this particular topic. And all who since, baptized or infidel, jousted in Aspremont or Montalban, Damasco or Marocco or Trebizond. So here we get a number of names, of place names, that is, and he's saying that this force of angels passed the army of King Arthur, who were surrounded by the knights from Britain and Brittany, and all those Christian or otherwise non-Christians, they that had fought, where he gives certain place names, who had fought in tournaments. Jousts means jousted means took part in tournaments in such places as Aspremont, Montalban, Damasco, Morocco, and Trebizond. So, of course, uh, uh, obviously, these are the names of places, different places, and they were quite famous during the medieval times. Or whom Bicetre sent from Afric shore, when Charlemagne, with all his peerage, fell by Fontarabia. Here, there is a reference by the poet to another event that happened, and the Milton is referring here to the warriors who had been sent from the port of Bicetre on the African shore to fight Charlemagne, when he, with all his peers, fell in battle near Fontarabia, which was at the fortress on the Bay of Biscay. And here, Milton is referring to the cycle of epic romances, namely those relating to Charlemagne and his paladins, who defended France against the Saracens. So his peerage, uh, it actually refers to the 12 paladins, Paladins, P being in capital, and they were the knights who owed their allegiance to Charlemagne. And among them, the two most famous were Roland and Oliver. So, Song of Roland, this was a famous medieval romance, medieval poem, and it recounted how Charlemagne and his men, they were defeated in this place called Fontarabia. Thus far these beyond compare of mortal prowess, yet observed their dread commander. So Milton is bringing in, as you can see, the knights of King Arthur. Previously, he talked about the giants, and then knights belonging to Charlemagne, and he says that these angels were to such extent beyond comparison with any human force, mortal prowess, and yet they were ready to obey their dreadful commander, that is Satan. So, here, of course, their allegiance to Satan is emphasized. He above the rest, in shape and gesture proudly eminent, stood like a tower. His form had yet not lost all her original brightness, nor appeared less than archangel wind, and the excess of glory obscured. So now Satan's previous name was Lucifer. Lucifer means the bright one. And when he was in heaven, he was known as Lucifer. But after his fall, he lost his brightness and luster, though he was superior to all others in respect of figure and gestures. And he stood there firm and strong, like a tower. His form had not yet lost all its original brightness, and he did not appear worse than a ruined archangel with his excessive glory, though it was dimmed by defeat, of glory obscured because of his defeat. So here, this is the description of the uh, glory of Satan, though it was much diminished. As when the sun, new risen, looks through the horizontal misty air, shorn of his beams, or from behind the moon, in dim eclipse, disastrous twilight sheds on half the nations, and with fear of change perplexes monarchs. So, again, here is a comparison, a kind of a simile. Uh, Satan's brightness, lost brightness, is compared to the newly risen sun peeping through the misty air of the horizon. So when the sun rises at dawn through the mist, its glory or its brightness is not so uh, prevalent or cannot be seen, and it seems to be devoid of the brightness of its rays. Or Saturn can also be compared to the sun when it is darkened by an eclipse. Uh, it goes behind the moon and it shades its dark light, portending disaster on half the globe. So, on half the nations, on half the globe, and disturbs the minds of kings with the fear of a revolution and uprising. So, in ancient times, in medieval times, as you know, there were no plausible explanations as to why eclipses occurred. And so it was believed that if such a phenomenon took place, an eclipse took place, because there was no scientific explanation of this, the monarchs, the ruling powers, they felt that a change is going to come. Some divine dispensation is going to force them to abdicate. They would be moved, they would be thrown away from their thrones. So, fear of change perplexes monarchs, disturbed the kings, because they could not account for the eclipse, which was, of course, an astronomical phenomenon. Darkened so, yet shone above them all the archangel, but his face deep scars of thunder had entrenched, and care sat on his faded cheek. So, though he appeared in this way, his brightness and luster somewhat diminished. Still, uh, the archangel looked brighter than all the rest. But thunder had cut deep scars into his face, and his faded cheek looked careworn. So, of course, he was thinking, he was in deep thought. But under brows of dauntless courage and considerate pride, waiting revenge. Still, his forehead was stamped with unflinching courage and conscious pride, and he was waiting for his revenge. Cruel his eye, but cast signs of remorse and passion to behold the fellows of his crime. The followers, rather, far other once beheld in bliss, condemned forever now to have their lot in pain. So there was cruelty in his eyes, but his eyes also showed signs of pity and deep feeling on seeing his partners in the crime, rather his followers in the crime. And they had looked different once when they had enjoyed the bliss of heaven, but now they would have to live forever in pain in hell. Millions of spirits for his fault amidst of heaven, and from eternal splendors flung for his revolt. So the millions of angels, fallen angels, uh, they would now be doomed to suffer everlasting pain, and millions of them would be deprived of, or they would be expelled from heaven because of his fault, and they have been stripped of heavenly splendors because of their revolt against God. Uh, for his revolt, yet faithful, how they stood, their glory withered. Still, Satan could see that they were uh, stripped of their heavenly glories, but they were faithful to Satan as they stood there. They are faithful to their commander. As when heaven's fire hath scathed the forest oaks or mountain pines, with singed top their stately growth, though bare, stands on the blasted heath. So here again, the uh, Satan's condition is being, uh, you know, compared. It is being compared to a damaged oak tree. So an oak tree which had grown tall and majestic, when it is struck by lightning, singed top, that is burnt, and oak tree or a pine tree, still they stand with their scorched tops, retaining their majestic look, though bare of leaves. So, of course, the lightning struck a tract of land, that is the blasted heath. So, like these trees, Satan and his followers were standing there. And this is the description of the fallen angels and Satan. He now prepared to speak, whereat their doubled ranks the bend from wing to wing, and half enclose him round with all his peers. Attention held them mute. So Satan now got ready to speak, and seeing this, the angels bent their ranks from one side to the other until they were double and formed a kind of a semicircle around him and the other generals. They wanted to listen to him, what he had to tell them, and they were all attention, they were silent. Thrice he essayed, and thrice, in spite of scorn, tears such as angels weep burst forth. At last, words interwove with sighs found out their way. Now, Satan now tried to speak 3 times. He tried to speak 3 times in spite of his pride, but tears such as are shed by angels burst forth and prevented his speaking. And at last, words closely mingled with sighs found their way out. Finally, he was able to address them after trying thrice. And this is what he said to them: O myriads of immortal spirits, O powers matchless, but with the Almighty. And that strife was not inglorious, though the event was dire, as this place testifies, and this dire change hateful to utter. So he says that, O countless immortal spirits, he's addressing his followers, O powerful angels who cannot be matched except by the Almighty. The battle with the Almighty did not degrade us, demean us, though its outcome was disastrous. So the event was dire. We lost, as is proved by this place where we now find ourselves, and this painful change, which I hate even to describe, hateful to utter. So the dire change, this hateful change that has come over us because of the loss of heaven. But what power of mind, foreseeing or presaging, from the depth of knowledge past or present, could have feared? How such united force of gods, how such as stood like these, could ever know repulse? So Satan says that, but which powerful mind, foreseeing or prophesying on the basis of the deepest possible knowledge of the past or the present, could have entertained the fear that such a united force of angels as those who fought in that battle could ever be defeated. So no one could have foreseen that this powerful army of angels, united force of gods, that is angels, that they would be defeated. So no one could have thought of such a calamity. For who can yet believe, though after loss, that all these puissant legions, whose exile hath emptied heaven, shall fail to reascend self-raised and repossess their native seat? And it was also, of course, impossible for anyone to sort of understand, believe that even after suffering defeat, that all these potent battalions whose banishment has emptied heavens shall fail to raise themselves by their own power to heaven and recapture their original abode. So this thought was really unthinkable. For me be witness all the host of heaven, if counsels different or danger shunned, by me have lost our hopes. So Satan says that so far as I am concerned, let the entire host of heaven. Entire host here means the victorious angels and the fallen angels. So everyone. Let the entire host of heaven be witness whether divided counsels. Counsels are actually decisions, divided counsels, or the deliberate avoidance of danger by me are responsible for the disappointment of our hopes of victory. So he says that it is a debatable matter. But he who reigns monarch in heaven, till then as one secure sat on his throne, upheld by old repute, consent or custom, and his regal state, put forth at full, but still his strength concealed, which tempted our attempt. So Satan is saying that he who now reigns as the king in heaven, till then feeling secure, sat on his throne, and he was supported by ancient traditions or by the consent of his subjects, or by custom. And he sat there, fully displaying his royal pomp, but always concealing his real strength. And it was because of this we were unaware of his hidden strength, and we were tempted to challenge his authority. And it was this that brought about our downfall and wrought our fall. So, which tempted our attempt. So, we were not uh, able to understand God's power, God's real power, which he concealed. Henceforth, his might we know, and know our own, so as not either to provoke or dread new war provoked. So, he is saying that now we know, we have come to know his power, and we know our own power also, so that we shall not provoke a new war with him. Or if a new war is provoked, we shall not be afraid of it. So both things are possible. Either a new war might be declared by God, then we would not be afraid of that new war, or we might be provoked to fight God, knowing our strength. Our better part remains to work in close design, by fraud or guile, what force effected not. So, just notice how Satan had also declared this earlier, that he would employ fraud or guile or trickery. So, the best course we can now adopt is to achieve by secret intrigue, by fraud or by deceit, what could not be achieved by force. Uh, so, close design, that he no less at length from us may find, who overcomes by force hath overcome but half his foe. So this line is very famous, and this is often quoted, this line. So here Satan is saying that God will then learn from us that no less than if we were to use force, that he who overcomes his enemy by force has won only half a victory. So it is not a complete victory, because yet they might use trickery or guile to combat the forces of God. Space may produce new worlds, whereof so rife there went a fame in heaven, that he ere long intended to create, and therein plant a generation whom his choice regard should favor equal to the sons of heaven. So Satan says that new worlds may appear in space, and in this connection there was a widespread rumor that in heaven, that before long God intended to create a new world and place there a race of beings towards whom he would show a special regard, and who would be privileged to enjoy equality with the angels. So Satan had heard this when he was in heaven, and actually this is a reference to God's creation of the first man and the first woman, Adam and Eve. And of course, they would be placed in the Garden of Eden, which is was the most beautiful place in heaven. Uh, Thither, if but to pry, shall be perhaps our first eruption, thither or elsewhere. So he is saying that there we would go, and it will be our first expedition to investigate this new world, this world or that some other world. And for this infernal pit shall never hold celestial spirits in bondage, nor the abyss long under darkness cover. So he's saying that this hell, this pit of hell, will not be able to hold the heavenly spirits, the fallen angels, for long in a state of slavery, nor shall chaos keep us long in this darkness. So we would be getting out of here. But these thoughts, full counsel must mature. Peace is despaired, for who can think submission? War then, war open or understood, must be resolved. So he ends his speech by saying that uh, these thoughts must be discussed in a full conference in order that a considered decision might be reached. So, full counsel must mature. This has to be discussed at length. And we must now give up peace as lost, because peace is possible only through submission. So, peace is despaired. So, there is no question of peace with God, because only if they submit to God, then God will uh, allow them to return to heaven, which is, of course, not possible for Satan to do. So he declares that war then, it is going to be war, and we cannot think of any other thing rather than war, and declare it openly. And we have to either keep it open or we have to keep it secret, understood? So this is the resolution that we have to take here. And so here ends the speech of Satan, and as you can see here, Satan is resolved to continue his warfare against God. So let us stop here. And here, of course, the as we saw here, Satan uh, has once again decided that he would not submit to God, as he had said earlier. So it is going to be open war, and his followers are also in agreement with him. So they would also side with him. They would not think of submission to God. So here, this portion that we have read is, of course, important because of the way the fallen angels are described. They're compared with different things. So we have to just keep in mind those descriptions. And I hope you have understood. Just give it a reading and just read and see if you understand everything, or if there is any problem, then you can, of course,